Hey friend, welcome to Healthy by Heather Brown. Do terms like mental health, intermittent fasting, and buzzy wellness words make you feel overwhelmed? If you don't know where to start with loving the life you already have and letting your good things grow until they become daily habits, I got you, mama. So join me as we unpack what it looks like to live a life well loved and redefine a new approach to health from the inside out. Think of this space as your girlfriend's group text with the occasional dad joke and point of view from my Yankee hubby, Eric. We promise to give you key takeaways that you can implement right away to pursue health in your mind, body, and soul, because God made us that way. Don't stress. Let's hop on this Hot Mess Express together. Hello, girl gang. Welcome back to another episode of Healthy by Heather Brown. I am so amped today to welcome to the show Dr. Josh Axe. I feel like his reputation precedes him, but in case you've been living in some, I don't know, like manhole or something covered up and hadn't heard of him, he is an incredible entrepreneur. He has all kinds of supplements. He's a doctor and y'all just a leader in thought, really on the cutting edge of health from the outside of just using pharmaceuticals. So I'm really excited to have him on today. He's in Nashville part of the time, Puerto Rico part of the time. Like, y'all, we're going to get really into it. I can't wait. So with all that said, Dr. Josh Axe, welcome to the show.
Heather, thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So I'm going to deep dive right into it because I was joking with Dr. Josh before we started hitting record. I was talking with some of my friends that are really into following his social media. It's at Dr. Josh Axe on Instagram. And I was like, what questions do you have? What do you think that I should ask him since you follow him so religiously? And they said, I literally don't know where I would start. And I said, LOL, me too. So we're going to go into just like a little bit of the nitty gritty immediately. And Dr. Axe, feel free to chime in too with just a little bit more about who you are and your background before you get into it. But the first thing I want to ask you is just tell us what a normal day-to-day healthy choice lifestyle looks like for you. Maybe the time that you wake up. What do you start your day with? Yeah. What supplements are you taking? What are you eating? How are you moving your body? All the things.
Yeah, well, one thing, I do try and make health more simplistic. I think a lot of people are talking about biohacking today, which I think it's not my general philosophy of hacking the body or trying to shortcut it. But I do think that one of the things I try and do is combine health practices together. And I think my focus is very much body, mind, spirit as well. I think you can have a healthy body and a sick soul, and that's not too useful for you. So I would say I typically wake up anywhere between 6 a.m. and 6:30. I would say most of the time it's closer to 6 a.m. And what I do every morning is I try and do more of what I call a spiritual triathlon. And so I'll wake up and the first thing I'll do is I try and get outside when the sun starts coming up. And so I'll go for a walk and then I will just get grateful. And so I maybe just think about what I'm grateful for a couple minutes. And then a lot of times I have my headphones in and maybe I'll listen to a praise and worship song. My faith is a big part of my life. And so I'll do a walk while doing that. And then I'll get back inside and I'll tend to make like a smoothie. And that's what I do pretty much every morning for breakfast, unless Saturdays, we're making sourdough pancakes or something fun at the house here. But yeah, I'll usually do like a superfood smoothie. I do collagen, bone broth protein. I'll do maybe some greens powders. I'll add in my own goji berry, blueberries. Yeah, and then just do a smoothie. And then when I do that,
I have to ask you this a practical question. Number one, I want to hear what your favorite worship music song is right now, because I want to link it in the show notes. And I'm always looking to expand my Spotify playlist. And number two, are you involving dairy at all in your base of your smoothie, or what's kind of like your base?
Yeah, I do coconut milk, okay. the canned actually usually. And I don't use much. I actually just do a very small, like just a little bit of a canned coconut milk. And then water with that. And then, it's berries and it's maybe a little greens and mostly protein powder. I usually I try and get about 40 grams of protein in the morning. And so I might even do plant protein. So I'll do a mixture of those collagen-based proteins along with some of the other protein. And then I am, now dairy can be fantastic. I will do sometimes coconut yogurt as well. But like my business partner, one of my best friends, Jordan Rubin, I mean, he drinks raw dairy not by the gallon, but close. I mean, he has raw dairy and he tolerates it very well. I have more of a sensitivity to dairy. I'm not against dairy, but I do think it's I kind of think it's 50-50. Some people do really well with it. Mm-hmm. Some people don't. So it's more of a personal preference of why I don't use it. And so I'll do that. And then I tend to sit down and read my Bible or maybe listen to a sermon or something like that and for a little bit in the morning. And just do that while I'm sort of drinking my smoothie or having something along with that for breakfast. And then about that time, maybe the family comes down or I'll go and work out. So sometimes we have a home gym or I'll go to the gym, typically work out about an hour, come home, hang with the family for 30 minutes while we're getting breakfast or getting ready for school. And then I'll start working around 9 a.m. And then from there, I tend to do my more creative stuff in the morning. It could be writing. It could be thinking about a show I'm going to record, watching some stuff or reading to learn. And then at lunch, and then a lot of times I'll record something. And around lunch, I'll eat something healthy. Today I did my wife is, for the past 2 years, been making sourdough at home. And so we do a lot of whole grain sourdough. And and I do a lot of real food. I do a lot of meat, a lot of vegetables, a lot of fruit, some whole grain, sweet potatoes, some rice, and then sometimes some sourdough. And then I'll work again. And then around 5, I finish up. And then
I'm going to pause you to say right there, listeners, did y'all hear that? He's not afraid of carbs. Carbs aren't a bad thing. So just pointing that out. He just listed lots of good carbs. So I feel like that's a common thing that we hear is people are like, how do you feel about keto? So I'm like, he's telling you he's eating carbs, healthy carbs.
Yeah, well, I am very much like, my training has been very much Eastern medicine and I've had a lot of Western medicine too, but the Eastern perspective is very much like everybody is unique and everybody needs something that's more personalized. I think there's about 10% of the population that could thrive on a keto diet, and maybe 2 or 3% on a carnivore diet. They really need that because of their SIBO and some of the issues that they're having with digestion and immunity for a period of time. But I really believe this happens so frequently, Heather, that people go and get on a diet because it worked for their friend. And then they don't get the same results. It happens constantly. And I'll give you an example of this. If I have a patient come in and I've worked with them and they have cancer, for instance, well, I put them on more raw. I actually back off on their meat sometimes, and I'll have them focus more on bone broth or salmon as their protein source, or fish. And I won't do much red meat or chicken. And I'll do cooked vegetables, like steamed. I'll do raw, I'll do juiced, and I'll have them go really high there, maybe some berries. And that's the big focus of their diet. Now, if I have somebody with inflammatory bowel disease, though, or an immune issue that's related more to autoimmune reactions, I have them consume 0 raw food. And I have them do mostly cooked meat and cooked vegetables in the form of soups. And that will heal and help reverse those issues. And so my point is that, I have people, depending upon what's going on internally, do very different diets based on, again, I believe in a personalized diet. So I did want to mention that. That's a big,
I appreciate that. That's good.
I have.
Yeah. And then you mentioned that about jumping on a diet that your friend did. I completely hear that. And in fact, I recently just made the same mistake with my husband. My husband was like, I'm going to go keto. I need to drop a few pounds after the holidays, blah, blah, blah. And so I was like, okay, cool. Me too. So because really I love doing something together, because I also appreciate that accountability. Yeah. But when I took away all those carbs, I noticed that my body actually started holding on to the fat. And so actually just this past week, I added on another 150 calories to my diet. Yes, I added it, friends. And then I also added back in a larger load of carbs, and I lost 4 pounds in a week. And so it's just like, I know this. I know not to jump on the bandwagon necessarily of what is working well for, especially a man, if we're being honest, like men versus women, and what's working for my husband may not necessarily work for me, and vice versa, your friend. So I think it's so important to be intuitive about what you're eating and to listen to your body, as always.
Yeah. And I think too, just in terms of male physiology and female physiology, I think that men tend to have, if we're talking about the conditions that I think, if I think about the top 2 conditions that I treated when I ran my practice and still today that I see, women tend to have more thyroid issues restricting and causing body issues. Men tend to have more issues regarding testosterone. And so they'll have very similar symptoms. This is interesting. If a man is fatigued and lacking motivation and feeling lethargic and not strong on all those things, they have a testosterone issue. If women are fatigued and tired and holding on to too much weight and those other issues regarding it, it tends to be a thyroid issue. And so with thyroid issues, you don't want to go keto. You actually want some good carbs. In fact, rice is probably the best carb, along with some berries, probably rice and berries for overall thyroid health when you're looking at carbohydrates. And then when we're looking at men, Well, for them, we really need to increase testosterone, and you want to eat foods that are anabolic. This is not something a lot of people talk about in Chinese medicine. It's called yin and yang. But basically, those more anabolic foods that help stimulate muscle growth are going to be red meat. They're going to be some of those healthy fats, doing a little bit more fat in the evening, especially at night. And then there's some herbs that really help with that. Fenugreek, Panax ginseng, some others that are good. And then females, on the other hand, if they've got more of those thyroid issues, you really want balance. What I would say is carbs in the morning, very lower carb at night, though. You don't want to go, you just don't want to, you want to find that happy medium. You don't want to go no carb, but you definitely don't want to go high carb either. So just a small portion of rice, half a sweet potato, half a cup of berries, those sort of things. You just want to keep carbs moderate. And you don't want to eat a lot of fat and carbs together. You want to do higher protein. And I would say breakfast and lunch, focus more on the carbs, and at night, focus more on the fat and protein together. And then women, for thyroid health, tend to do very well with ashwagandha, also very well with dong quai, very well with astragalus. Those would be probably my top 3 herbs. And then getting more B vitamins, especially some of those methylated vitamins. And the top source of methylated B vitamins would be organ meats. And so you could take a liver capsule or an organ blend. I actually like that a lot for women because those are going to build the blood and support methylation. So just a few tips there for women that are struggling with any sort of weight or thyroid issues.
That's awesome. And in fact, my functional medicine doctor had me start on, I think it was beef liver organs. And have you heard of the company Eat Pluck with the beef organ spices?
Yeah.
Okay. So I thought that was really a cool add-on to my eggs or whatever in the morning. But you mentioned rice, and that's a common question that I get asked by the mamas that listen to this podcast is, if you could choose your most ideal rice, is there a type that's better or worse for women?
No, well, I would say that the easiest to digest would probably be jasmine and then basmati. So those forms of white rice are going to be easier to digest. In Chinese medicine, the shorter grains, like the arborio rice, and the jasmine's a little longer than that, but those tend to be more for building qi. So that tends to be more thyroid. I would say more of what the thyroid would need. The longer grain are a little bit different depending upon, but I would say almost any rice is fine.
Okay,
I do think jasmine and basmati, those two, depending upon what you prefer, are probably two of the better that they can do. Yeah, and by the way, it's interesting. I've never been full on everyone should eat paleo. I do think for some people, they do well with it. But I've never been a paleo person. And I want to mention, my biggest focus is on longevity. I want to help people still being able to run around with their grandkids, thriving, feeling like they're 50 when they're 80. And with that, you look at the longest living country, it's Japan in terms of country. And of course, Okinawa, we've all heard of Okinawa. What is the number one food they eat in Okinawa? I mean, it's rice. And so, and by the way, I'm not saying rice is a superfood, but I'm saying it's well tolerated. When you look at a big part of their diet, it's fish and rice. And so I do think that for that reason, that it's a better carb than most.
Awesome. Well, I have taken us way off in the weeds. So I'm going to bring us back to you have lunch.
Yeah.
So your lunch is usually, is it leftovers? Are you cooking something fresh each day? What does lunchtime forward look like?
Yeah, I would say it's almost always leftovers. Well, it's frequently leftovers. And then I love making food. So I might make salmon patties with some Mary's Gone crackers, so some flax crackers and eggs. I might do turkey. I might do, grass-fed beef burger from the night before. But at night, we make a lot of different meals. I'd say we'll do something like spaghetti squash with turkey or grass-fed beef meatballs. We'll do, we have almost 4-year-old, and she loves spaghetti. So there's a lot of these meatballs and spaghetti we're making now at home. We'll do a lot of like Asian dishes. So my wife did a cashew chicken stir fry with a lot of ginger, onion, and garlic last night, and some soy sauce. And then it just depends. I mean, we're kind of all over the place. Friday nights, we do pizza night. So my wife does a sourdough crust, and then we'll do natural pizza sauce. We'll get a little bit of, we tend to not use cow cheese. We tend to do sheep or goat. So we did like a manchego. It's like a sheep cheese on there. And then we have a herb garden, so basil. So yeah.
The only reason I know that is because Eric and I got engaged in Spain, and I had never heard of manchego cheese before. And first of all, that's like a whole experience in and of itself over there. Yeah. But he loves manchego cheese and sourdough. So I'm like, I'm taking note to recreate this at home.
Yeah. We go to Whole Foods Market or Sprouts. I mean, they'll have those cheeses there most of the
For sure.
time, even some of the other fresh markets. So yeah, a lot of those places will have that sort of cheese there. And the reason I bring that up is there's a type of dairy that's found in conventional cow's milk today. It's called A1 casein. And that tends to be the protein very similar to gluten that a lot of people are allergic to today. This is why some of us may have heard that consuming goat's milk is easier to digest than cow's milk. It's not goat versus cow. It's that we have this sort of, there's a genetic mutation in a lot of the cows today that have this inflammatory protein versus if you buy A2 cow's milk or sheep or goat, it tends to be less inflammatory and easier to digest.
This might be a dumb question, but you mentioned earlier that your business partner is really into raw dairy. Does the raw dairy still have that property? Or for people that don't really know much about raw versus normal milk, what's kind of the difference there?
No, there's a lot. We could do a whole episode on this, but I'll try and give you my 1-minute version. There's a lot of issues with dairy. The number one issue is one of the big issues is the genetics that I mentioned. And so when you're having a traditional Holstein cow, that milk, there's a protein in there that is not found in the ancient breeds of cows that you'd read about in the Bible, let's say. It's not the same protein. And then, so it starts off with the genetics aren't good versus sheep and goats the genetics are still fine. The second issue is the processing. Well, let me throw in a third issue. A third issue is the other things along with the cow, what they're eating. If they're eating genetically modified foods, if they're eating corn, if they're not eating grass, that's all going to affect the milk supply, making it less healthy because it imbalances the fatty acid ratios, amongst other things. And then they've found estrogen and a number of other medications in dairy if it's not organic. So number one, you want the genetics to be good. Number two, you want organic milk. Number three, you want to consume things that aren't processed. So raw is definitely better because when you're processing, you're killing off all of the enzymes and the probiotics, all the things that help you digest it in the first place. And those are the big things.
That's super helpful. Great 1-minute synopsis. I'm like, bravo. Yeah. So now we've gotten past your lunch. I love this because I knew there were going to be so many small, tangible rabbit holes I'd want to take off of this conversation. But after lunch, what does your work day look like or any like mental health type practices you might do or what have you?
Yeah, at the end of the workday, I jump right into playing with my daughter typically. And so it could be bringing her to the park. It could be jumping in the pool. It just depends. So either my daughter and I or all of us as a family, my wife, we have a 3-month-old too, we'll all be doing something together for maybe
Congrats,
an hour.
By the way,
thank you.
That's exciting. Yeah.
And then typically it's dinner time and our daughter wants to help out. So it takes twice as long and it's twice the mess, but she's learning and we love that. And so again, we'll make some dinner and then at night, by the way, it's just seasonal in life. Like right now, we still have the 3-month-old waking up at night. So then I'm going in and helping get down most of the time I'm sleeping the night with our 3.5-year-old. And we're about to transition her to sleeping by herself. But so I'm doing that now. So reading her stories, which they're never long enough. So I'm doing that. And then if I sneak out and get to my own bed, then I'll listen to an audiobook for maybe 30 minutes or the Bible on audio, something like that. But I don't know that I have a mental health practice. I just pursue God and growing spiritually and spending time with family and friends. And that seems to be a good cure. By the way, one of the things I might upset some people by saying this, but I was talking to our podcast producer about this today. But one of the things that's happened today is we're living in a society that's very self-focused. Mm-hmm. And this is something what my favorite psychologist, Jordan Peterson, talks about this. And I've done this research as well. I wrote a new book called Think This, Not That. And in the book, I really get into how do you create the healthiest mindset possible that can help you break free of disease, that helps you, helps you overcome limiting beliefs, a number of issues. But there's really almost no difference between being self-focused and depression. I mean, it's what leads to depression. So if you're constantly focusing on my problems, my issues, the things I have going on, it's not a good strategy. If you've been doing that and if you're depressed or you have anxiety or you've got mental health issues, 90+% of the time it's due to you just are focusing on your own problems.
Yeah.
And by the way, the literature shows that too. This is all, if you want to know all the psychology research, the psychologist Jordan Peterson, being a Harvard psychologist, proving this as well, is that's the bigger part of the issue versus when you're focusing on others and serving others and using your own gifts to serve others and make the world a better place, then that's one of the greatest cures for depression. Now, I do want to say I'm very empathetic to people that are in a situation to where maybe they're part of the 1% or 10%. But a lot of people going to counseling and therapy and some of those things, sometimes those counselors, I would say, by the way, it's like this in the medical field. Yeah. I would say you go to more than half of doctors, they're actually they're making you worse from the standpoint of they're not leading you down the right path. So you're wasting your time and you're getting worse living in this sort of world versus if you actually start getting to the root of the problem. Why am I depressed? Is it because I'm not pursuing my dreams? Is it because I haven't found my purpose? Is it because I'm selfish? Is it because and listen, there are things, all of us have childhood trauma that we need to deal with and get through. So I do think that everybody should be working on those things and overcoming those in the right way. But if you're pointing it to yourself versus pointing to something bigger than you, like God, then you're just never going to get there. I mean, that's one of the things people have to realize. And so all that and part of the reason I'm saying this is I've experienced this. I had, a lot of people don't know this, but about a year and a half ago, I was diagnosed with a spinal infection I got from just a natural treatment. Wow. Sort of crazy. And I didn't walk for a year. So actually this time last year, I wasn't walking. I was in bed for 12 months.
I had no idea. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. And during that time, I got to this point where there were emotions I'd never experienced before. Depression, despair, hopelessness. Because I met with a doctor and he said, you may never walk again because this has gotten into your bone. You have an infection inside the bone. It's close to spinal cord. And I kept focusing on, what if I never walk again? What if this is it? What if I live with pain the rest of my life? And then I realized this is not serving me. This isn't helping me. And I'm even reading online, what are the case scenarios? What are all the things? What's the worst case scenario? And then I realized this isn't serving me. What will serve me? Well, focusing on my ideal future and focusing on how can I improve the lives of others along the way and use my gifts, unique gifts and skills to love people. And so I said, you know what? I can't play with my daughter right now in the way I did, like throwing her up in the air in the pool, but I can have her sit with me in bed and tell her a story, right? Yes. I can't get on video right now, but I can write a book. So I worked, and actually I wrote this book, Think This, Not That, when I was in bed for that 12 months. And it's by far the best book I've ever written. Wow. That came out of that pain, right, was used for purpose. So I bring that up to say, I just think that when we're talking about mental health, because you'd asked me a little bit about that, I do think if you want to have the healthiest mindset possible, it's about what you focus on. Because right now I could think about everything that I'm blessed with, my purpose, my gifts, loving other people, loving God, making earth a heavenly place. I could focus on that, or I could focus on, I have this other thing going on and my focus could be on that. So really mental health, the biggest part of it is on focus. Not to say there's not other things, but the biggest part is, are you focusing on the positive things that can happen, the way to move yourself forward? Or are you focusing on those other things? I think that's a really important distinction.
Hey mama, do you feel like you are surviving on chicken nuggets and goldfish and haven't stepped in a gym since college? Or maybe, on the other hand, you feel like you're checking every health box and are still hitting a brick wall? Well, I'm here to help you redefine what it means to be healthy from the inside out. I'm a former fitness instructor and everyday mom who is passionate about helping you create a beautiful life you freaking love. So I'm opening the doors to the Healthy by Heather Brown membership to the public and can't wait to walk alongside you and be your cheerleader. When you join, you'll be added to my exclusive Facebook group. You'll receive my Sunday Reset training that will help you create promising, sustainable, healthy choices from the inside out, which will in turn lead to a more joy-filled life for busy moms. Live coaching and workout classes with yours truly. You asked and I listened. We'll talk about how to balance your whole health when you have kids and life get busy with school and activities. It includes grocery haul ideas and accountability as we all reset together each Sunday. There will be so much offered that you won't find anywhere else on the internet. Are you ready to take one step out of stress, shame, unhealthy boundaries, and fatigue and add healthy rhythms to the Hot Mess Express? When you're ready, I'll see you on the other side of the link in the show notes. I'm excited and ready to hold your hand and meet face to face.
I 100% agree. And this is actually a really timely conversation because I actually just left a Bible study and I read this verse, and this Bible verse keeps coming up over and over again on this podcast season. And so I know it's divine that you came on and just shared the story, but it's 2 Corinthians 10:5. And it says, we demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God. And this is the key part. And we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. And I think so often we get stuck in this mental negativity loop and doubting ourselves and doubting who we are in Christ, and so much self-doubt and even self-hatred and shame and guilt can creep in. But that is why, but God even warns us in the Bible that those things will happen. Unfortunately, that's part of this broken world that we live in. But I think it's so powerful for the women that listen to this podcast to hear that you were there. You were literally broken. You thought your life was no longer going to be the same, but instead, thank God, he brought to mind for you to take every thought captive, make it obedient to Christ. And how could you still serve him well and where you were at? And I think that so often we think that it's about that journey that we're getting to. I want to lose this 10 pounds, or I just want to have written this book, or I just want to have even like my kid not to have this issue. But ultimately, if your goal is pursuing Christ, he is the reward, friends, and he's going to give you that hope that is the only thing sometimes that can break you out of that negative sin cycle.
That's right. Yeah. And I think, and part of one of the things I do get into this book is a big part of limiting beliefs. I think this is something that so many of us have limiting beliefs that are holding us back and not allowing us to achieve the things that God has called us to do in life. And I had a lot of people say after reading that first chapter, this is something that when I read this, it allowed me to finally experience that breakthrough. I'll give you an example for me. You talk about negative self-talk. So when I was in high school, I had a teacher ask me to stay after class. Her name was Miss Noble. And she said, Josh, what do you want to do after high school? And I said, I want to be a doctor. And she laughed out loud. She said, with your grades, you'll never be able to get into med school. And she said, listen, she said, and by the way, the year before my mom had cancer. And so I'd seen her go through chemotherapy and losing her hair and had a mastectomy and all that trauma. And so when I was 13 years old, I said, I want to be a doctor and I want to help people like my mom. So the next year I'm in school and this woman tells me, you'll never do that. And I'm 13, 14 then, and I didn't know any better. And I thought, okay, I guess I can't. And she said, you're getting an F in this class, a D right now, or an F on this paper, a D in this class. And I walked out of there thinking, okay, well, I guess I can't do that. And then 2 weeks later, I get brought to a doctor, diagnosed with ADHD. And then I thought, well, not only am I not smart, I'm like medically not smart. So there's something wrong with me. So I just stopped trying in high school. The only reason I graduated high school was I didn't want my dad to get too irate.
Grounding, please. No grounding.
Yes, I graduated with a C-. And I applied to all these colleges, got denied by almost all of them. But one of the colleges I wanted to go to is actually University of Kentucky. They sent me a letter and they said, you're not accepted. But if you come and do summer school and you average above a 3.0, we'll let you in. Wow. And I thought, well, okay, well, I'm going to go. And I decided I'm going to try. So I went and I tried. And one of the first assignments was a paper, went and wrote a paper. And the teacher asked me to stay after class. And I thought, oh no, this is like deja vu. And she said, Josh, have you picked a major, or what's your major? And I said, well, I don't have one. She said, well, I think you should consider being an English major, journalism major, because I think you're a really talented writer. She said, you got an A on this paper, highest grade in the class, and hey, well done. And I walked out of there thinking, wow, I'm smart. And my point with this is it's like I had a memory or a mindset transplant. I went from believing I'm just not smart, I'm not enough, to, wow, I can do this. I have this unique gift and talent. And I just replaced it. I swapped it. My point there with, you had mentioned, was it 2 Corinthians 12:5?
I'm going to fact check right now. 10:5. 10:5.
10:5. Yeah. And taking every thought captive. And it's a very similar thing. It's very biblical in nature. And in that, you know what, you want to take, and this is step one in overcoming limiting beliefs, is we have to identify, one, that thought, and also when did it start? When was the first time I felt like I wasn't enough? When was the first time I felt just shame for something that is part of who I am? And so I think you want to go back to that, activating that memory. When was the first time we had that? And then you want to write down, what's the exact belief? What is it by belief? And for me, I realized it was, I'm not smart. It might be, I'm not beautiful. It might be, I'm not worthy. It might be all kinds of things, but you want to write that down. And then you want to And then you want to contest that and say, well, what does God say about me?
Come on.
What's the truth about what maybe someone who's a lot wiser and encouraging, who really knows about me? What would they say about this? And then you want to reinforce the truth and be able to meditate on that on a regular basis. And you want to be able to build what that thing is. So for me, I'm not smart. Well, I put my A paper on the bathroom mirror. And by the way, I don't think it's actually healthy to go around saying I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and people love me. That sort of terminology and phrase.
Yeah.
Because by the way, if you just keep doing that and it's not true, or you don't truly fully believe it, your nervous system knows it. Like it knows when you're lying to it. So a lot of people are lying to themselves about it, versus you want to actually have proof of it. And if God says it about you, that's proof.
Right.
If a teacher says it about you, or someone who's respectful, that's proof. And so if you can instead prove it in real ways versus I'm smart enough, that doesn't work. That's what most people try though. Like most of these self-help books and whatever, they're like, just tell yourself you're worthy and special. It doesn't actually work. Versus if the most praiseworthy, there's a quote I love by J.R.R. Tolkien, and it says, the praise of the praiseworthy is above all rewards.
Ooh.
Well, who's more praiseworthy than God? When someone that's praiseworthy tells you you're made in his image and he's got a plan and purpose for your life and you're unique and all these things, well, that's powerful. So I think once we start living in alignment with those things, the mental health issues resolved, the depression, the anxiety, and sometimes it takes time to reinforce these things, but I think these are important realities.
100%. And I know we're quickly running out of time, but I'm fine with going a few minutes over just because I wanted to get to this point, because you do talk so much about mental health and your mind and dementia and Alzheimer's. It's been a trend that's been coming up that I'm reading in books, I'm seeing it on social media, that Alzheimer's and dementia is essentially type 3 diabetes. And I'm curious, number one, what your thought is on that, if that's true or factual or what have you. And then also, and just for further context, I lost my mother-in-law about 6 months ago to dementia and Alzheimer's. And so it's just very close to our heart, and a lot of how the Lord has shaped my views and everything this year. And all that to say, is there anything that you see from what you're learning, you're studying, you're reading about the mind, that people can have a hope and that the Lord has provided with us for ways to even work on reversing it, preventing it, any type of, I guess, like just medical knowledge you have that is pointing us in the right direction of what people can do other than just being like, well, this is our fate and there's nothing you can really do?
Well, it's not your fate. That's one of the biggest lies ever told. And it's something the conventional medical system really continues to push, is that if you have a condition, the only solution is to be on a pill the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And it's an absolute lie. So in the case of something like Alzheimer's disease, here's the thing everybody have to remember with almost all conditions. If you don't use it, you lose it.
Yeah.
And this is true for building muscle. Think about it in a very similar way. If you're not lifting weights, if you're not walking to help build bone density, if you're not doing some of these things, you'll lose your ability to do it. And so if within your brain, if you're not doing things to bring blood flow to it, because the body only brings blood flow to the areas if you're using it, or an extra amount. It's not really not extra, but my point is if it needs use. So for instance, when you're lifting weights or doing a bicep curl, more blood is being pooled and flooded to your bicep. Okay.
Yeah.
If you're not using the part of your brain where you're learning something new, where you're growing, that's the key. Are you growing? Are you growing spiritually? Are you growing mentally? Are you growing in your relationships? Are you growing in character and skill? If you're growing in your character and skill, almost always you're going to be bringing more blood flow to the brain, that area of the brain. This is why there's plenty of studies on this, by the way. Studies have shown learning a new language, doing puzzles, problem solving, deeper, more engaging conversations, all of these things prevent Alzheimer's, all of them.
Super cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
And similar thing, well, why would a keto diet work as well, or be better? Well, because your body's now is running more on ketones. It's more fuel for the brain. again, there's more blood going to the brain. So that's what needs to happen. That's also why the ancient herbs that are most used and prescribed for dementia would be ginkgo biloba. It brings blood to the brain. That's what it does. And so anyways, that's really should be the focus is on growing. If you're growing and continuing to get better your whole life, and that's your focus on reading and listening to podcasts and growth, then really your chances go down dramatically. And then if you can also do things like take lion's mane mushroom and ginkgo biloba, some omega-3 fatty acids, some of those things that really support brain health, getting those healthy fatty acids and keeping inflammation low. Walking is fantastic exercise. You really, your chance of getting dementia should go down, 100-fold. I don't quote me on that exact number, but it's going to be incredibly high. It's going to be incredibly high.
That's incredible to hear. Well, thank you for giving encouragement, because I know that I have listeners that are in the same boat with either in-laws or parents in that boat. So I'm super hopeful that they feel encouraged by that information. Now, Dr. Axe, in wrapping, the question that I ask everybody before they close is, how do you reset? Number one. And then number two, if people are really interested in hearing more about this mindset and where to find you online and your new book, can you tell them a little bit about where to find you and all those things?
Yeah. So how do I reset? That's okay. How do I reset? Well, the way that I personally reset is I go back to making sure that my aim is correct and I'm aiming at the right thing. Well, what happens is a lot of times people will, in not spending the right amount of time discovering truth and prioritizing, they'll say, well, hey, I want to drive this great car, or I want to have just a bigger home or a second home, or I want to have whatever it might be. We have these I want to get the promotion. But sometimes we start pursuing these minor things instead of pursuing the major things, and that just gets us off track. And so what I tend to do is I step back and say, you know what, if I get to the end of my life, what would a great life look like? And I'm going to give a little bit more of a lengthy answer here, and I hope that's
I love
okay.
that. Great. Yeah.
I'll give you an example. I was at my grandfather's funeral. This was years ago. Now, he had an amazing life. He was a World War II veteran, lived to be 96 years old.
Dang.
And I was standing next to somebody. We had hundreds of people there, and there was a man next to me. And the pastor said, there's this part during a funeral where he says, does anyone have any final words or anyone last words about Howard? Mm-hmm. And the man next to me just screams out in tears, yells, Howard was my best friend. And I remember looking over at him and thinking, and by the way, my initial reaction should have just been empathy, but it was, well, I know you and I know my grandfather. I don't think you're his best friend.
I don't think he viewed you as his best friend.
Well, listen, that's what came to mind. And then, but it was a split second. Then I realized, what? I'm sure my grandfather was his best friend. Because half the people in the room probably felt that way about my grandfather. He at 44 years old decided, I'm not following my passion. He was working on telephone lines, out fixing those. And he said, I want to do something different. And him and my grandmother, they took all of their savings. They bought this small campground with a lake. And they ended up building a swim park for families, like doing youth retreats out there. They built out this campground. And he did that from 44 till he was 96 years old, worked up until the last year of his life. And he blessed so many people. He would go back there. He would pray for people. He would give them money, let people stay for free. Just was like, it was just a ministry for him. And I was sitting there in that funeral and I thought to myself, most people would think, and I even had parts of me like this, okay, what's success? Well, it's having a certain amount of followers or making a certain amount of money or a certain type of recognition. I realized, no, this is success, right? It's not what you accomplish. It's who you become. Yeah. And so I think for myself, sort of resetting and thinking about, well, what's a good reset? I think a good reset is focusing on who we're becoming rather than what we're accomplishing. I think that's something, we all have a to-do list. We should have a to-be list. Am I being generous today? Am I being incredibly loving to my family? Am I acting with a servant's heart? So if we can really focus in on those things, I think that's a good reset, is starting with the end in mind. And for me, the end for us globally is love God, love people, make earth a heavenly place. Am I doing that? Am I becoming that type of person? And when you're becoming the right type of person, those accomplishments will come. But don't just focus on the accomplishment. Focus on who you want to become. And this is something I really hit on my book and how to do this. I really focus, and that's the second chapter of exactly how to do this. And one final thing I want to say too in relation to that, the book is, I talked about those limiting beliefs earlier. Most people don't realize they're one single limiting belief away from a total breakthrough in their life. Like if I would have kept that one mind frame, that one mindset that I'm not smart, I would have never become a doctor. I would have never, by the way, I graduated Johns Hopkins a year later with a 3.9 GPA.
Dang.
I've written 7 books. By the way, none of this is to brag. It's all just to say,
It's
this
to
is
prove your
all
point.
glory to God. But if I would have had and held on to that one belief, none of that would have happened. None of it. And there's a lot of people listening or watching this, and you've got a limiting belief. And it's holding your relationships back. It's holding your career. It's holding that life of your dreams back. And that's really why I wrote this book, is to help people break through those beliefs and experience that in their life. And it's the best book I've ever read. We've gotten rave reviews. So, and if anybody wants to go to joshax.com, I have the book there, and we actually have hundreds of dollars worth of free bonuses. You'll get the free workbook with it. You'll get I have a mindset master class. We have all kinds of stuff on there, bonus interviews. So if you just go to joshax.com, if you just buy the book or go to Amazon, buy it and put in the link, you'll get all those free bonuses there as well. And then, you can find me at Dr. Josh Axe on my social channels. I have a podcast. It's large and growing. You can go on any of the iTunes, Spotify, or to listen to that and listen to our interview we're going to do together as well.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Here, on my podcast, but I would say on my podcast, my social channels. But big thing is going to joshax.com, getting the book. But I love this interview, and I love what you're about. I love that you're teaching people how to be healthy, body, mind, and spirit. It's something I'm very much passionate about. So thanks so much and I love your hat, the Natural Predators here.
Go Preds. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Axe. Honestly, it was a joy to have you on. Thank you so very much.
Awesome. Thanks again.
You're welcome. Okay, you guys, you just heard that interview, and I hope that it made an impact on you like it did on me. I was furiously taking notes during the interview, and if I could challenge you to do one thing today, it would be to listen to what Dr. Josh Axe said about when did I feel shame or when did I feel guilt, and go back to that memory and to think about what your limiting belief is that came out of that, and then to think about, and how does this relate to my relationship with God and who he says that I am? And if you are a child of God and you're redeemed, friend, he redeemed it. He already paid for whatever that sin, that shame, that guilt, whatever it is. He already paid for it on the cross. It's done. And you get to walk in freedom today. And so I just hope that really encourages you and that you just have the most blessed and awesome day today. I'm so proud of you for hitting the play button, listening through this, and hopefully feeling a little bit of conviction and a whole lot of encouragement. Love y'all so much. Have a great day, and I'll see you next Tuesday.